otherwise we will not have the question answer. In fact, that may happen. So
good afternoon, sir. I welcome Professor Shaban. He's professor at Center of Public Policy, Habitat and Human Development, School of Development Studies at Tata Institute for Social Sciences, Mumbai. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation for chairing the session. I also welcome Dr. Sarang Pedwalkar. He's assistant professor in Department of Public Health and Public Health and Mortality. Thank you, Dr. Sarang, for being here as a discussant. Sir, it is over to you. You can chair now the session.
Thank you, Dr. Preeti. So welcome to all of you, and Dr. Sarang, Dr. Preeti, and we have 5 papers in this session, but one presentation is not coming. So what we can do, we can have 20 minutes for each presentation, and then discussant will take 20 minutes, because that is important. And if the time is remaining, we will have actually question and answer further elaborations. So a very interesting paper in this session. We have this session on population characteristics and components. And the first paper, I invite the first presenter, Manali, if she is around. Manali, are you here?
Yes, sir. Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah. So the Manali is going to present the paper on disease burden and healthcare utilization in northeastern region of India. So over to you, Manali, and strictly I will remind you 5 minutes before. So you have 20 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
So over to you.
Okay, I'll just share the slide. Is the slide visible, sir?
No, it's not visible. Now it is becoming visible. Yeah, you can expand it.
Okay. It's in full screen, sir. Is it in full screen?
It is now visible properly. You can go ahead.
Sir. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm presenting my research paper titled Disease Burden and Healthcare Utilization in Northeastern Region of India, co-authored by Professor Hem Lungdim. So let me start by giving you a brief background about the paper. So in the Indian Health of the Nation State Report in 2017 indicated that India faces 12 burden of diseases, with infectious and neonatal disorders being reduced, but not to a great extent. And the non-communicable diseases are at the rise. So even with the changing burden of diseases and epidemiological transition, the government has funded less resources and expenditure on the healthcare sectors compared to the other developing states, other developing countries. So just okay. The Rural Health Statistics Report in 2018 stated that the primary healthcare centers and the community healthcare centers lag behind in healthcare facilities and human resources basically in the tribal areas. So as northeastern region of India is mostly inhabited by the tribes, the shortfall of resources is prominent, and it's one of the major reasons for the population or the people staying in northeastern region to opt for private healthcare facilities and ending up spending more of their income. The World Bank and the WHO in 2017 indicated that the half of the population in the globe does not have access to the essential healthcare services. As a result, the households pay from their pocket for the healthcare expenditure, and which resulted in 100 million households being into poverty. The population in the rural Northeast India basically opt for public healthcare services, whereas the urban area mainly focuses on the private. So this was also quoted by Hussain in 2015 and Bang and Roy in 2019. coming to the objectives, we all know that Northeast India is diverse in its geographical characteristics like rough terrain, and they have different social and ethical structure. So yet over the years, Northeastern region has experienced an increase in all-round development in the socio-economic and healthcare sector, but also being heavily burdened with communicable and non-communicable diseases, particularly for their treatments. The specific objective of the study is to identify the burden of disease pattern in the Northeastern region, the choice of healthcare services for the treatment, both in both urban and rural areas, to understand the major reasons for neglecting those ailments in Northeast region, and also to see what are the correlates that has an influence over the healthcare choice of healthcare services and the treatment status of the ailment. The methodology here, the data I have used for the study is National Sample Survey 2017-18, that is the 75th round, which is a social consumption and health. A study basically collects from 5,55,115 individuals from rural and urban areas. But our study is based on 72,334 individuals. There are also some part of the study which is based on 13,090 subpopulation among those who have spale elements in the last 15 days prior to the survey. Also, we have excluded childbirth from the study. The statistical analysis here, the ailments were basically divided into 4 broad categories like infectious, non-communicable disease, and disabilities and injuries and other ailments, which will be mentioned in the next slide. So, and bivariate analysis were used to understand the distribution of the disease, the choice of healthcare, and reason for not seeking any medical advice. Whereas multivariate was used to see the influence of those factors on the status of treating or untreating and the choice of healthcare. Stata 15 was used to conduct the analysis. This is a table showing the various diseases that were included in the 4 broad morbidities with infectious NCDs, disabilities and injuries, and others, following the ICD-10 list. So coming to the results. The first figure shows the prevalence of infectious disabilities, NCDs, and other ailments in the northeastern region of India per 1,000 population. So if we see the infectious disease among all the northeastern states, the highest prevalence is observed in Arunachal Pradesh, that is 43% per 1,000 population. So followed by Mizoram and Assam. For the NCDs, Sikkim has 39 per 1,000 population, followed by Mizoram and Tripura. Whereas for injuries and disabilities, Tripura, Mizoram, and Arunachal Pradesh also shows very high compared to the other states. As an overall in northeastern region, infectious diseases leads the chart, followed by other diseases. With overall, we can see that counting any of the diseases, there is 64 per 1,000 population is having any type of diseases. The next, which shows the top 10 diseases or ailments in the northeastern region of India by urban and rural sector. So among the top 10 diseases, we see that fever with loss of consciousness, acute upper respiratory infections tops the chart. Whereas while we also see that in urban areas, diabetes and hypertension is a prominent part of the diseases, but in rural area they are least. The next figure shows the treatment status by ailments in northeastern region. You can see that almost 3/4 of the diseases are being treated, whereas on 25% goes untreated, which is mostly disabilities, that is 37.9%, and infectious, 28.1%. But NCDs shows an opposite result. They are being 94.9% of the NCD cases are being treated or and the people having NCDs opt for healthcare services. This table shows the percentage distribution of choice of the healthcare facilities by ailment in rural and urban sectors. 74% of those who have treated their diseases were asked whether, like, which household healthcare facilities they choose for treatment. So people in the rural areas have mostly opted for public healthcare facilities, that is 53%. Also, there is a 47% of high percent of population choosing the private healthcare facilities. Whereas in the urban area, we can see that most of the population who are having those diseases have opted for private healthcare facilities, that is 70%. As a whole, Northeastern region mostly preferred private healthcare facilities, that is 53%. Although diseases and ailment wise for NCDs, Northeastern region opted public more than urban area, but also it gives an opposite statement, which is 77% of them opting private healthcare facilities. The figure 3 shows us the reason for not opting public healthcare facilities or treatment in the urban areas. So here we can see that people like 47% who opted for private healthcare facilities in the rural area stated that they haven't chose public healthcare because there is an other reason, or they were not satisfactory enough to be choosing the public healthcare facilities, and there is also a very long wait of time, or it is too far from their place. In the next slide, we are seeing the same reason for not opting public healthcare in the urban areas. So in urban areas, it was 70% who have not chosen or to take go for public healthcare facilities. So the reason for that were mostly long waiting time or being far, and also they have the specific thing of like they have preference for a doctor facility like family doctor, or they have know someone who knows the known doctor. Next figure shows reasons for not treating the morbidities in the rural urban. It shows, firstly, this figure clearly indicates that both in urban and rural areas, they didn't choose to take medical advices, mostly because they have found that the diseases are not serious enough, or they thought that these diseases won't affect won't affect them much, which is also is very common in the rural areas, or the rural areas mostly. But we also can see that 13% of the population in rural area have also mentioned the reason for not treating morbidities or not opting for any healthcare advice was unavailability of the services in their region. So this figure gives us the factors that are associated with their choice of healthcare facilities, that is private or public healthcare facilities. So the star marks in the figure tells us the significant variables or the correlates. The individual who have graduated or graduated, and those who are from non-tribe section, also those who have are from richer background and stays in the urban areas, or having NCDs or any other diseases, seems to be more likely to choose private healthcare facilities compared to the public healthcare facilities. This also states that the education, wealth status, area you live in, and the type of morbidities influence their choice of healthcare services. The next shows us the correlation or relation of the factors, association of the factors with choice of untreated morbidities. The figure indicates that females are less likely to untreat morbidities, which is common as men tends to suppress or ignore the diseases in the northeastern region. There's also the tribe status and place of incidence, which plays a role into it. Non-tribe and urban residents are less likely to not treat their diseases compared to the rural and tribal people. Also, the role of type of diseases like the NCD plays a very important role. It was also shown in the bivariate analysis that the people with NCDs opt to have they're highly likely to choose to treat their diseases compared to other diseases. The major findings in the study are northeastern region is having the prevalence of 23 per thousand population as a whole and 65 per thousand population for any ailments, which has decreased according to the other rounds of NSS. Whereas states like Mizoram, Sikkim sees a high prevalence of about 80% per thousand for any ailments. The urban residents utilize private healthcare facilities or treatments, did not utilize did not utilize public health because of the distance and preference of the doctor, whereas in the urban area it was likely because they were not satisfied, or it has too long wait or too far. In Northeast region, over 1/4 of the population did not treat the ailments, which is higher in the rural area, that is 30%, and lower in the urban areas, 11%. There is a gap, there is a huge gap between those. Also, the main reason reported for not treating ailments were similar with the previous studies by Pandey and Nagwam Roy. Also, there's such as morbidities are not, also they have a very common reason of the seriousness. They did not treat the diseases seriously, or they just see just a mild disease. They think it is a mild disease. Also, factors like education, social group, place of residence, wealth status, and disease plays an important role where in healthcare, choice of healthcare facilities, whereas sex, social groups, and types of ailment influenced the choice of treating the status. For the conclusion, the study clearly reveals the wide gap in untreated morbidities within rural and urban areas in all the 4 diseases explained, with disabilities and injuries and infections going mostly untreated in the region. Evidently, it is highly important that the state prioritize the healthcare facilities in the rural areas, mostly on disabilities, health in the decision. The focus should not only be a program, but it should be governed properly, thinking about the needs of the local people, as the government should not only build the hospital, but also build the infrastructure, but the huge gap of having manpower or proper equipment is a very prominent reason for people not choosing public healthcare facilities and are opting for private healthcare facilities. These are the references which I have followed. Thank you.
Thank you, Manali. Thank you, and you concluded within the time. In fact, you've saved 5 minutes even. So thank you very much. Thank you. We will come to your paper later on with the discussion from Dr. Sarang, and then some questions from you. So please wait. Now I invite Devaram to. Are you around? Or Prashant?
Sir, he's not present. Next, we can take next.
We can take other. R. Lusum and Professor Bhagat. So Professor Bhagat is not here, but R. Lusum, are you around?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
So you have your paper, Trend and Pattern of Internal Migration in India.
Yes, sir.
Something very interesting like the first paper. We are looking forward that what is happening to the migration, because after the COVID, it has come to the increased focus. So over to you, Lusum.
Thank you, sir.
You can share your screen and go
Yes.
ahead. You have also 20 minutes. I will remind you.
Okay, sir.
So
okay, sir. Okay, sir. Am I can my slides be seen?
yeah, it's visible.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lusomi from Pondicherry University, and this paper is written along with Professor R.P. Bhagat from IIBS Mumbai. So as we also have heard from yesterday's panelist that projection of migration is going to be the most crucial where in the absence of the regular 2021 census. So because of the pandemic, in that light, we believe that understanding the trend and the pattern from 1971 to the present is going to be actually very crucial. So we have kind of look at the trend, how the migration has increased over time, or whether the increase has been greater with for the male as well as the female, or whether it has been we have looked at the streams of migration and the pattern, and we have tried to look at some states which is receiving more migration, as well as the states which are like sending out or giving more migration. So looking at that, we will straight away go to the slide. I have not given the literature review as well as the other thing here. I am just going straight to the findings. We have used the data is only from the census. We have relied only the census from the various years from 1971 to 2011. We have relied use data from the census. So yes, if we look here, if we look yeah, so if we see here, we can see that in 1971 we have around 156 million of internal migration in 1971. The green one shows the number of female migration, whereas the red one gives the number of male migration. It is given in million. So this has kind of increased to, I mean, it has grown nearly three times to around 450 million in 2011. But as we can see that the size of the green color is much wider, much bigger in all of the census, showing that the number of internal migration has been dominated by female migrants. So this is one if we look, I mean, in the country, internal migration in the country has been dominated by female migration. So if we look at the percentage of migration, internal migration to the total population, we see that I mean, the red one shows the total percentage for the total, the green one for the male, and the purple is for the female. We can see that it is around 30% of the population were migrants in 1971, which has kind of increased to around 37% in 2011. But if you see again here, the female migration, which is around 43% in 1971, and even in 1981 it was around 43%. As you can see here, this is around 43%. This is also around 43%, around 44%. This has increased to around 52% in, I mean, around 52% in around 52% in 2011, which means that more than half of the female are actually migrants in the country. Okay, so this is what I mean. I can say about each year, but as we can see, the percentage of male migration in 2011 is around 23% only, as compared to it is like around 23% only as compared to 52% of female migration in the country. Okay, so if we see how it has grown, I have divided here the lifetime migrants, meaning including irrespective of the duration of migrants, whereas intercensal migrants, meaning migration which has happened like 0 to 9 years before the census. So if we see that here, as we can see, the growth rate we observe, I mean, many studies also have shown that there has been a decline in the rate of migration during 1981 to 91. In this decade, there has been a great decline in the number of migrants. Okay, as we can see, even in lifetime migrants, but if you see in the lifetime migrants, we can see that it is above 0. There has been a decline in the growth rate, but it is still 3.1, which is above 0, meaning the absolute number of migrants actually has not declined, even for male lifetime migrants. But if you see the intercensal migrant, we can see that there has been a negative 12% decline, which shows that actual number of male migrants declined during 1981 to 1991. During that inter-census period, there was a huge decline in among the male migrants in the decade of 81 to 91. That is what we can actually see from here. If we look at the lifetime as well as the inter-census migrants for 1981 to 1991. So now, after seeing this one, we also would like to look at whether migration has been the pattern of migration, whether there has been more of rural migration, or there has been more of urban migration, or there has been whether short distance, whether they have migration has been dominated by short distance migration or long distance migration. If we see here, the blue color shows the migration within the district. The red color shows migration between districts, between different districts, which is in distance wise, we generally believe that moving out of the districts shows that we have traveled longer distance than moving within the district. And the green one shows interstate migration. So if we see here again, we see that there is a clear dominance of there is a clear dominance of the migration within the district itself. Okay, for both male and female. For both male and female, in every census, there is a clear dominance of migration within the district. But as we can see, the share of the red color is increasing, whereas the share of the blue color is declining. As you see from here, as you see, this is around 68%, which has gone to around 58% for the female. So if you, even for the male, it is around 52, which has gone around to 47. So if we see that, we definitely see that the share of these two colors, okay, the green color and the red color has increased over the decades, which kind of shows that the role of distance as an obstacle to migration is gradually declining. Irrespective of the distance, migration has gone, kind of longer distance migration is becoming more and more common as the transportation improve or the distance between two places become easier. With the development taking place, it becomes easier, and it kind of become like a shorter distance. Well, actually the distance remains the same. So I can only say that yes, longer distance migration has become more and more prominent in the in the decades as compared to the earlier times. Now, if we look at, this is also actually, if we look at the streams of migration, whether people are moving from rural to rural, or is it rural to urban, or is it urban to urban, or is it urban to rural? If we see here the blue one and the slightly blue, I have just tried to differentiate this color and this color to differentiate between the male and female. But the blue one shows the rural to rural, which was very important, which was the most dominating, actually very dominating during 1971. Like 50% of male migrants moved rural to rural in 1971. Rural to rural migration was so high. Now you see 70%, 71% of female migration. 71% of female migration was just on rural and rural to rural migration in 1971. But you see the changes in every year, every decade it has changed. But if you just see here, it has gone to around 50, 57, from 71 to 57%, and from around 50% to 28%. If you see, that is a great change. I mean, great shift in the pattern of migration. Rural to rural migration is become. I mean, it's not the biggest component for male migration anymore. It is actually, see, this blue color is the same distance as the purple color, which is actually the urban to urban migration. This is also like 28%. This is also like 28, kind of 28%, meaning the importance of rural to rural migration and urban to urban migration is the share is same for male migrants. For female, of course, more than half of the female migration is still based on rural to rural. But we can see the share, how the share have changed from kind of 70%, 70+% to less than 60% or around 74, 57, 56% in 2011. So there is a great shift in the pattern of migration, even for male as well as for female. So we just want to see if the growth rate, how it has changed. I mean, for male and female. If we see here, we can see that the same thing in for the male in 1981 to 91, there is a negative growth rate. There has been a negative growth rate for all streams. Only for the red color, which is rural to urban. I mean, it is exactly somewhere around 0. It is not exactly 0. Yeah, but only for that, the absolute number did not decline during that intercensor period in 1981 to 1991. For all other streams of migration, there was actually a reduction in the absolute value of migration for male migration. But
Just
for
5 minutes more. Go ahead.
Okay, so we can see that there is internal migration, but yes, these are the top migration receiving states. We can see that the rest of India, only the 10 states are like 78%. 78% is by 10 states. Here around 76% by 10 states, 76% 10 states, and here around 75% 10 states. Now, if you see among the 10 states, you will see that Maharashtra and New Delhi, they are having almost more than 1/4. In every decade, they are having more than 1/4 of the migration is for going to Maharashtra and New Delhi. Okay, so since I'll just leave this, and from where they are coming, if you see, most of them are coming from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. As you can see, more than 1/3, meaning around 33% of the total migration to states are actually originating from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. So if we want to see, we have done something called out migration ratio, meaning the value of 1 shows that there is same as the number of people. If one person migrates, goes out of the state, 1 people comes in. Okay, so 1 is the ratio, but 9.41 shows that for every 1% that comes into Bihar, 9.41 people are going out of the state. So if 100 people coming into Bihar, 941 of them are going out of the state. So you will see that those states which are in this left side are actually gaining more, having net migration, meaning having net out migration, meaning they are sending out more people. More people are moving out from these states than more people coming to this kind of states. Even Kerala, Orissa, Rajasthan, all of this shows that more people are going out than more people coming into the state. And this is the same thing, the line here, this is the line of 1, which shows that equal number of people are going out, equal number are coming in. But as you can see from these states, more people are actually coming in. Like Maharashtra, you will see here, Delhi, all this, you will see that per people going out, more people are actually kind of coming in. So now, yes, the key findings are there has been a steady increase of internal migration with feminization or dominance of female migration, and medium and long distance migration has increased, and migration to urban areas, whether it is from rural or urban, but moving to urban areas has been the dominating feature of the migrants. So, and there is, of course, a dominance of migration flow by few states. As I said, Maharashtra and New Delhi, they are at least 1/4 of the migrants total from all the country are going to these two places, whereas Bihar and Uttar Pradesh is contributing more than 1/3 of all migrants. Thank you.
So thank you very much for your presentation, Lusom. Wonderful. I mean, explaining this migration and the pattern very graphically. Now we move to the third presentation. I invite Minu and Lusom again. Minu or Lusom are going to present on factors determining out migration from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. So it is one way, it is a continuing kind of paper from the past, the last presentation. So over to you, Minu or Lusom, who is going to present it.
Yes, sir, I'll be presenting.
Okay. And you have 20 minutes.
Was my screen visible?
No, you have to share it.
Is it now visible?
Just wait. It is, yeah, it is visible now.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'll be presenting on factors determining out migration from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, 1981 to 2011, a quasi-Poisson regression. This was authored along with Dr. Lusomi. So, in times of stabilized fertility and mortality rate, migration is what actually is very important component of population change. So interstate migration especially is affected by and does affect various socioeconomic and cultural conditions in the destination as well as origin. Now, factors affecting migration choices have always been very dynamic. In such a scenario, we have the following objectives for this paper. Our first objective is to study the flow of migration from states of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. And the second is to determine the impact of migrant stock, distance, state domestic product, and Hindi speakers on the destination choices of migrants from the states Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. So just as we saw in Dr. Lusumi's presentation, the two states, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, have dominated the out-migration in this country. And interstate migration from these two states increased from 33% in 1991 to 36% in 2001, and again further increased to 37.5% in 2011. So this paper analyzes intercensus migration from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh to various destinations during the census periods 1991, 2001, and 2011. Now, if we just look at this table, we can see that from Bihar in 1991, the largest number of out-migration was towards West Bengal. But however, in 2011 and 2001, it was more towards Delhi. Now, again, looking at Maharashtra, we see a similar pattern that in 1991, it was the outmigration was more to Delhi, while in 2001 and 2011, the outmigration from Uttar Pradesh was more to Maharashtra. So basically, we can see that Delhi, Maharashtra have dominated the outmigration from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. Now, for our analysis, we have used intercentral interstate outmigration as the dependent variable, and we want to see how the migrant stock, Hindi-speaking population at the destination, net state domestic product, and the distance between the places affect the intercentral interstate outmigration. So we expect that the intercentral interstate outmigration to be affected positively by migrant stock and by Hindi-speaking population at the destination. Also, net state domestic product at year I, which is a proxy variable for economic development, we expect that also to have a positive impact. While we expect that the distance between the places would have a negative impact on the outmigration from the states of Bihar and UP to any other state. The models of intercentral outmigration is estimated following a general specification for both the states of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh for the following years, 1991, 2001, and 2011. We use the following regression equation. Since the data that we have used is count data, Poisson regression was the most probable choice. However, when the variance is significantly larger than the mean, the assumptions of Poisson regression does not apply, and the solution is to use a quasi-Poisson regression, which does not assume the variance means equivalence. Now, in a quasi-Poisson model, the parameters are actually left in a more natural and interpretable state, and hence would produce better precise results and would allow standard model diagnostics. Since the paper analyzes outmigration rather than in-migration, a quasi-Poisson regression is again a better model, as a quasi-Poisson regression model gives greater overall weight to larger values than does a negative binomial regression, which could have been another possible option other than a Poisson regression. Now, after running a quasi-Poisson regression for the years 1991, 2001, 2011 for both states of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, this is the results that we obtained. However, the problem with a quasi-Poisson regression is that the results are not easily interpretable. So so here the stars show that the coefficients are significant, but it's actually difficult to interpret these coefficients. So rather, we have used something called the incidence rate ratio. Now, interpreting the coefficients in the normal quasi-Poisson regression is difficult. So what we have used is the incidence rate ratio, which is given by the following formula. Now, from that, what we obtain is this table. Now, if we look at this table, we find that this incidence rate ratios actually represent the factor by which the response variable or the dependent variable changes with an additional unit of independent variable, all other things remaining unchanged. Now, the IRR for migrant stock for Bihar in 1991 was 0.0000169. Now, we can obtain the IRR by taking the exponential of that number, and we obtain it as 1.0000169. Now, similarly, we can find for all other coefficients. So this basically implies that 1 unit increase in the migrant stock of destination country increases the rate ratio of migration by a factor of that IRR, everything else remaining the same. Now, if we, for an example, if we talk about Bihar 1991, it shows that 1 unit increase in the migrant stock of destination country increases the rate ratio of migration by a factor of 1.0000169, everything else remaining the same. Now, every coefficient that shows a value more than 1 shows some kind of positive effect, and all the values which are below 1 shows a negative effect. And here we see that the positive effect is the highest in case of migrant stock and net state domestic product, and the negative effects are exhibited in distance between origin and destination. Now, the key findings from this analysis are that overall, the positive effect in case of migrant stock, in case the positive effect is the highest in case of migrant stock for the migrants from Bihar, indicating that the states with larger migrant stock attract further migrants. Now, when we look at Uttar Pradesh, it shows slightly different story. The net state domestic product, which is a proxy for state's economic performance, along with migrant stock, just the way for Bihar, has a positive impact on the choice of destination among migrants from Uttar Pradesh. Now, looking at the, if we look at this table, we find that the distance generally has a negative impact, while if we look at Hindi speakers, it does not show any significant impact. So again, the distance has a very negative impact, while the number of Hindi speaking population does not really have a significant impact on the choice of destination states for both Bihar and Uttar Pradesh migrants. Thank you.
Thank you, Minu. Thank you for this presentation, and quite complex mathematical formulation from your side, statistical formulation. We will come to that. Now I invite the last paper, Venkata Raja Malla, to come and present, and Rashmi to come and present paper on living conditions and quality of life of transgender in Kurnool districts, Andhra Pradesh. So over to you, Venkata.
Yes, sir. Sir, I'm visible.
Yeah, you are visible.
Yes. Good afternoon, sir. Myself, Venkata Malla. Now I'm going to present on living conditions and quality life of transgender in Kurnool, Andhra Pradesh, authored with Dr. Rashmi ma'am. This is my outline of the study: introduction and literature review, data and methods, major findings, conclusion, recommendations, and references. Introduction. The term transgender is arose in the mid of 1990s from the grassroots level of gender differences. As per WHO, transgender is the umbrella term for the people whose internal sense is different from the sex they were assigned at the birth. In India, transgender has a history of more than 4,000 years. For centuries, they were respected as the spiritual figures in the society. But during the Kanora rule, they lost their importance in the society. If you see in 2011 data, as per 2011 data, there were 4,87,803 transgenders are there in India. And Uttar Pradesh had the highest transgender population with 28%, Andhra Pradesh with 9%, and Maharashtra and Bihar with 8 each. Andhra Pradesh is the second largest transgender population with 43,000, and in that Kurnool is the highest. In Andhra Pradesh, transgenders are known as Isras. They dress in saris and they give themselves as a female names, and they call every male as Mama and Baba with female connection tones. Transgender people live in Andhra Pradesh are still struggling to access their rights, whichever they got from the Constitution of India as well as the government, and they're still struggling to accessing of housing, land, education, and employment. And majority of the transgenders are suffering in the hands of the police every day in the practicing participating in the begging and prostitution. So the data and methods. Present study is based on primary data, which was collected from the transgenders from Kurnool district of Andhra Pradesh. Both qualitative and quantitative techniques were used to collect the data. The sample size was 110, 10 in-depth interviews, and 1 KII. All these analysis was carried out by using SPSS, data, and Atlas TF. Results are shown in percentage, distribution, and averages. all this qualitative information was translated in English and added with these quantitative findings as a supplementary narratives. To study the quality of life of transgender, I have used WHO quality of life of questionnaire, which includes 26 questions in 4 domains. One is a physical domain, psychological domain, social relationship domain, and environmental domain. This is my location of the study area. Andhra Pradesh, Kurnool district. Kurnool city is the headquarters of Kurnool district. These are the major findings. The major findings in socioeconomic conditions. Like in age structure, 35.4 of transgenders are found in, belongs to in 32, 34 years, and in relation religion, 65.5 of belongs to Muslim religion, and 5.5 from Christian religion. In caste, 32.7 are belong to OBC category, and lowest 16.4 are from other religion, other caste. And level of education, 26.4 are transgenders are completed the primary education, and lowest 14.5 are completed the bachelor degree and above. And place of birth, 62.7 are transgenders from rural area. In economic conditions, occupation 66.4 of are engaged in begging, and remaining 33.6% self-employed. In an interview attended age 32 shared that majority of us are engaged in both begging and dancing due to this irregular nature of the income from this occupation. In migration pattern, this is for the migration. 55.4 of transgenders for living with their own gender identity was the main reason for the migration, and lowest for 10% for staying with the community. And agent of the migration, 63.6% of transgenders helped by the transgender friends, and lowest 5.5 the help of the relatives. In the key informative interview also revealed that most of the transgenders are migrated from various districts. They told that they are highly mobile population with migration pattern, specific migration pattern. And she given one example of migration from rural to urban area to escape discrimination abuses from this community to join transgender communities, only like in cities in Kurnool, Visakhapatnam, Chittoor, Vijayawada in Andhra Pradesh. She said that Kurnool is one of the largest transgender living city in Andhra Pradesh, as well as developed small city where transgender social expectancy is very high, which act as a pull factor for their migration to Kurnool. And said that migration from rural to urban areas for better life and for getting their identity. The main motto was to reach their community where they can get new identity as well as a reason to live their life. And working and living conditions. In occupation, 66.4 of are engaged in begging, and income per month, here 41.8 of transgenders are income lies between 5,000 to 9,999. Our lowest 1.8 of less than 1,000. 60% of the transgenders are having savings, and 73.6% of are living in a double bedroom houses, and lowest 5.5 are living in a single bedroom houses. Type of festivals, 60.9% of the are celebrating Bonalu, and remaining and lowest 12.7 are celebrating Christmas. In health seeking behavior, in health coverage 75.5 of transgenders are not having any health coverage, and in PHC do not provide healthcare. In this, 55.5 of transgenders reported that PHC do not have enough knowledge on transgender health issues, and lowest 10.9% of reported that healthcare do not provide a welcoming environment. And in denying healthcare other than the cost reasons, in this 56.4 are transgenders are reported that they are fear of discrimination, and lowest 19.1% are reported that clinic is too far away. In health treatment, 76.4 are reported that they are taking the healthcare from the private hospitals only. Quality of life of transgender in Kurnool. In this 4 domains, it having 4 domains like physical domain. 56.4 are having a bad quality of physical life, and the psychological domain in this 65.5 are having a bad quality of psychological life, and in social relationship 60.9% having a good quality of social life, and environmental domain 66.4 are having a good quality of environmental life. And one transgender age 34 during in-depth interview told that I was begging for the whole day, still I was not able to earn money for my meals, and I will have body pains at night times. I face a lot of problems by begging. Some people used to scold me, abuse me, and threaten me. I feel very badly because of their abuse and scolding. These are the factors which are affecting the quality of life of transgender in Kannur. Socioeconomic conditions, transgender migration, working and living condition, health seeking behavior. These are the 4 factors which are affecting the quality life of transgender in Kannur. Conclusion. Majority of the transgenders are found in the age group of 30 to 34 years. Most of them transgenders are migrated, and most of them are helped by the transgender friends to Kannur. And majority of them are found in the are Muslim religion or belongs to Muslim religion. They are engaged mostly in occupations like begging and dancing. All the respondents had made a statement that their earnings are not sufficient to live a good life because they are staying in a small city where the cost of living will be increased by day by day. The entire respondent reported they are living in a rent house. They don't have any permanent house or own house. And government hospitals in Kurnool, they don't have any separate wards for these transgenders. They are not very comfortable to stay with in males or female wards, and even they don't have any separate toilets to them. There is a need to highlight the physical and psychological problems which are faced by the transgenders in India as well as Andhra Pradesh, and policy should be framed for the improvement of their quality of life of transgender. There should be evaluation committee to examine whether the transgenders are able to take the rights and policies which are given by the constitution as well as the government. The transgender issue should be also involved in curriculum in the schools and colleges so that students will learn how to behave and treat a transgender in the community and the society. Transgender community should also empower to boost their self-esteem, to ask their rights which are given by the constitution, and raise voice against the violence on them to live a dignified like others. The government should also implement social welfare schemes to transgenders for the betterment of their life. These are my references. Thank you.
Thank you, Pankat. Thank you so much. It's wonderful presentation. Obviously, some of the questions which are arising, like why the 72% of the sample is coming from the Muslim community, whether there is some process underway, why there is a larger share of population of Muslim in this transgender if sampling is correct and random. I think that you can explain it later.
Yes, sir.
And there is another some question about the Northeast, like if the disease burden in the Northeast is actually something like that, what it is in comparison to the rest of the India, whether we are actually the similar situation Northeast or actually it is in a comparatively better or worse. You can also look at particularly Manali can look at, and obviously there are actually there is some changes which actually we find, and we see that female longer distance increasing in the migration. Why it is actually happening, and whether the distance which you are taking is able to capture everything in the your regression equation. So I leave these questions to you at the end. We can discuss, but before that I invite Dr. Sarang to come and make comment and discuss these papers. And over to you, Dr. Sarang.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Actually, there might be some issue with the bandwidth, so I am not starting my video. I hope.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, yes. So the first paper of from Manali regarding the disease pattern and the utilization of healthcare services in the northeastern state. It was quite a good study, interesting analysis, and the presentation was also quite good. However, I have some comments like the presentation of certain tables. It would have been better if that would have been presented in terms of graphs. So the comparison in a slide would have been very easy. And also the presentation of regression, I think she can use some better way of presenting those things. However, the conclusion parts of or the findings from that particular paper, they were quite interesting about the utilization of the services, and considering that how the people, they were not utilizing the services, considering this was a minor element, or particularly in rural area there was use of public health facilities, and the reasons for not use of public health facilities were also like long waiting period and choice of treatment. So I am not sure whether, but if she could have a possibility checked with the whether there was an alternative of present, or there was a choice present for this particular person to choose from a private sector, or if there was no alternative, or to use the public sector only, or the alternative to use only private sector only. I think that would have been better. But nonetheless, the disease pattern and the changing scenario that is happening in the northeastern part of India, it is quite good and interesting topic. Regarding the third paper by Dr. Lusome for the trends and patterns of internal migration. So these are quite interesting findings, like the feminization of migration, and how only few states they are few states they are actually out migrating, and there are few states which are actually there is in migration that is getting concentrated, and the pattern of urbanization and high amount of urban to urban migration that is very well presented. And the next paper by Minu is actually a very good continuation of that. Unfortunately, I was disconnected for some time in that paper, but nonetheless, it was a quite good analysis, and the patterns of found, like the presence of already some migrants from that particular state in a particular state, which actually attracts and kind of snowball sampling, it attracts the more number of migrants at a particular state, and the type of these driving factors and its determinants. It was quite a good analysis. And by Venkata, the last paper about the use, I think there is a quite a good mix of qualitative, some quantitative assessment of physical quality of the quality of life in physical, psychological, and social domain. And also I had the similar question, why there is means a high proportion of Muslim population in the transgender, whether there is any specific reason for that, or this is just the kind of sampling that has led to such kind of observations. And also he had checked various aspects, but I think the knowledge about sexually transmitted diseases and whether the possibility of some in are engaged in some commercial sex activities, I think that could have also been analyzed, and whether such kind of, or whether the entry into these kind of activities, it was forced because of lack of any other source of employment or any other source of livelihood, like begging. A large amount of people are also involved in begging, means what is the education level, whether means if there are so many people they are organized, whether there is someone who is working for their welfare. I think that things could have also come out through the qualitative research, and those things could have also been mentioned, that if some are self-employed, what are the employments they are engaged into, and those who are begging, then what are the drivers which led them to begging, or means why it was, because either if it was because of low education, if it was no any other skills that could have led to some livelihood. I think these things could have also been focused, but nonetheless, it is a very good and interesting findings that are coming from very quite a large sample. So with this, I think I rest my comments. Over to you, Shaban sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sarang. Wonderful comment, and I think that if those who can put the videos on, and actually Dr. Sarang has put some questions and certain comments, and I also highlighted a few of them. If you can answer those things and actually just respond to those questions. So what we say, the 3 minutes each one of you. So first I can invite the first paper presenter, Manali. Can you reflect on some of the things?
Thank you, sir. Yes, Sarang sir have pointed out the graph pattern, instead of bar diagram, I should have put in up the graph. I think it would have been a better display of the result.
Actually, I mean, instead of table,
Hello.
instead of some tables, some graphs would have been
Sir?
better.
Okay, sir. I'll keep that in mind. I will. The regression I tried on presenting in a graphical pattern of the forest plot, but I'll keep in mind and present it maybe next time, or in some other presentation. I will present the regression in a proper table. Also.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Sir, you have pointed out a question about the private facilities. I couldn't get that question properly. If you don't mind, can you please repeat that question?
Dr. Sarang,
actually,
you said about it?
Yes, sir. So actually, my concern was whether there was a choice, means availability of any services. Some comment could have been, if the data could allow, she could have analyzed a bit about the possibility of availability of these kinds of services.
The
Whether
private,
government or
yes, sir,
whether
there were.
private.
Okay, so there were questions on like which healthcare facility was available to them. So there was like government sector primary healthcare centers, then trust-run hospitals, and private. The private sector was, yeah, the other under private sector there was private clinics and everything. I actually clubbed them and made it the private and public. So I will try to do it further into like segregate all the private facilities and do the analysis.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Manali. But what I suggest,
Yes, sir.
I mean, that when you present a sub-regional analysis, Manali,
Yes,
keep
sir.
in mind that comparison factor, because in the absolute factor, we will not know that whether the region is getting worse or good. I mean, whatsoever is condition, assuming that it is all India average. So you have to just take care of the some kind of comparison with some other regions or rest of the India.
Okay.
And if it is high or low, what are the things which are underplay that actually create those kind of condition in the northeastern region or actually Indian region? It is actually helpful. Nothing wrong to present in actually sub-regional level, but a comparative picture will help to understand what is going on. So thank you, Manali, for wonderful
Thank you,
paper.
sir. Thank you so much.
And it was so wonderful to see that, I mean, this disease burden and other issues in northeastern region. Now I request Lusom to come and 3 minutes to you, Lusom, to respond some of the questions.
Sir, yes, thank you. As far as I did not get any question, but yes, I will, since I have co-authored the next paper, there is one question regarding whether the distance that we have used, whether it is, we have just used a geodesic distance, so we just measured it in the Google map. So probably it may not give you the accurate, because the road, also the other flight or the trainways, the roadways, we have not actually kind of measured that. We have just used the geodesic distance that is just from Google Map. So we also, I'm not too confident, but that it will give you the very, very accurate relationship. But the finding that we found kind of meets our expectation, or kind of fulfills it kinds of goes along with the theories of migration, which says that distance is actually has an inverse relationship.
Exactly.
So I think yes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, the distance plays a major role and in migration. But when actually we come to, I mean, just only, I mean, our discussion, it is nothing to on the paper. When we take the distance in actually the empirical sense, and we are trying to measure. In this kind of paper, when the distance, for example, assuming that any short state, small states, if there are small states and only the districts surrounded by the other states, people are going from this district to that districts, more interstate migration will be there. The bigger state, you will have less interstate migration. So how to control and adjust the population, because that is actually the big problem in UP, you know. For example, if anybody moves out from Delhi, he becomes interstate migrant.
Yes,
And
yes.
if anybody moves out in Uttar Pradesh, is not interstate migrant because it is a country in itself. So
Yeah,
that's
yes,
where
yes.
the limitation of the data and distance
Yes, yes.
comes into huge play. Similarly, the states like Bengal, your shape matters. Why I said your shape matters in the migration. If you have Bengal, which actually like a kind of like bird, which actually have long crane, so you have actually going to the Himalaya till this, and it is one district which is elongated and going. You move out from your districts, you go to Bihar or go to somewhere else, and you become interstate migrant. So this all actually the shape of the state may be actually playing major role, and that academically, what I'm telling, academically we need to control that some way, and that where in my view what actually may matter if you take into your account more geodetic distance between the districts. So instead of focusing of interstate migration, focus on the distance itself. Distance from the district to district, and then maybe more actually accurate information. Maybe the persons are going 500-kilometer range, persons are going 1,000-kilometer range. In UP, I'm from UP, that is what I say. I moved from Faizabad to Ghaziabad. I have moved 1,000 kilometers. I have not crossed the border. You understand? My economy is changed the way from a kind of paddy cultivations to the wheat cultivations. I mean, climatic conditions are changed. The social conditions are changed, but still I'm not interested in migrant. So what actually in this kind of scenario that defines it, that academically and actually the more nuanced way, statistically it is valid. You have moved from one administrative unit to another. But I mean, in a very academic sense, it has limitation census data, and it is nothing because all of us are engaged in that. So our census data has limitation, and we need to be very careful that how geography and shape all these matters in deciding interstate another kind of scenario. But obviously, Bihar and UP sending more migrants. That is actually what you have brought, and who will agree more than, because Dr. Lusom, that this is something happening. These two states are more engaged in their political project rather than development. So these fellows are actually, our chief ministers are engaged in the all kind of nonsense other type rather than actually taking care of the population. And something very important your paper brings, all these now states are bringing some kind of restrictions, 75% reservation or 85% reservation for the, even Haryana has gone to the local job will be offered. Where these UP people will go, if the Maharashtra says to me that you go back, what will I do in Faizabad? I will sell around Mandir some prasad, or actually I will sell something. I don't know what will be, I will be. Yeah. So these are the states which are actually where there is a failure of the governance and the development governance that has happened. And I think that some of these papers need to write. Or we collect money from Gujarat and Maharashtra, those go for the Ram Darshan. That is what actually we can do. So because our economy is nowhere. We are not where we are dependent on other states for our development, and when the other states, so some of these nuances, know what you are bringing out is so sharp, and that is where the paper is so important, and move from the only data to the implications to the population. And I think that will be wonderful. And go into the political economy, why people move. I mean, some fundamental question. And what if the restrictions come, like labor restrictions now coming in the job employment? Another way, all these states are doing that. What the EP will do? We will give only the NREGA, and Professor Shaban will go and employ himself in the NREGA. And that actually will be the good development for all of us. So it's something very interesting coming out. And thank you very much for bringing this paper. So
thank you, sir.
Professor Bhagat. Now I invite Minu. You can come, and if you have any point regarding so complex mathematics, all of you have used, you can come in, and you can take 3 minutes to make your remark.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Lusumi has already explained or has tried explaining why we've used geodesic distance. Other than that, about the mathematics, we have used the quasi-Poisson regression, and it's a little complicated, but since we have count data, the probable choice was a Poisson regression. However, Poisson regression cannot be used under all circumstances. If the data shows over-dispersion, which in our case did, we had to use some other kind of data which is related to Poisson regression, which could have either been a quasi-Poisson regression or a negative binomial regression. But however, for our study, since it's about migration and out-migration, quasi-Poisson regression was a better probable choice. And about the suggestions, yes, sir, we would really love to work on the implications that our findings have on the out-migration from Bihar and UP. Thank you, sir.
Unmute.
So sorry. I'm so sorry. Now I invite Venkat to come and respond to the comments because your paper is so wonderful. I mean, primary data, but take care of those comments which will be made.
Yes, sir. So actually, you have pointed this Muslim religion.
Yeah.
So in this Muslim religion, when I'm collecting the data, while I'm asking this transgenders, most of them are reported they are Muslims. Why? Because they are saying that Muslim religion having the greater social expectancy than the other religion, and this Kurnool city also most of was mostly dominated by the Muslim community only. And that is the main reason why they have converted. Actually, they have not born in that religion, but the most of them are converted into Muslim religion. And begging issue, in begging occupation, the main reason is that it was like forced one only, sir. Actually, we can see there is some of the people who are 60 plus also, transgenders. These people are not having any pensions. Even they're not having any monthly income also in their hands. So that's why they are going for this begging, and most of them are involved in this begging. It was a forced one. And the health issues like HIV and AIDS, most of the majority of the transgenders are not interested discussing their health issues with anyone. Have tried to ask a few of the transgenders, but they're not interested to reveal these health issues mostly. That is us. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Venkat. Why actually we asked because it was coming. I mean, 72% it was disproportionate. About 8% of the population in Andhra Pradesh is the share of Muslim in that state, 8 to 9%, and the whole the sampling was about 72%. That what I felt what actually maybe a reason. Obviously, I mean sampling if there is some kind of thing, and what you said that quite plausible. What you said that they have put their names, and this has been a tradition. You come from anywhere because some way the culture which emerged in the medieval time became more acceptable because this kind of Nawabi culture in the North India where one can actually celebrate the dance and celebrate a different kind of thing. So you had this in North India, and I think that similar culture prevailed also in the South India. And naming, because even if you look at these marginalized group, you will find they put the name of something which is around Muslim. So there is a possibility of also confusion even they have not converted. So that happens. They will keep those names which are easily like Rashmi, Reshmi, all those that kind of name generally they keep. So that possibility remains that one. And this was something very interesting what you said that there is a more acceptability. I mean, my own experience shows that they do not accept it. But I'm wondering. It's a wonderful paper. I mean, we need more elaboration discussions further. But do they accept it? Because even on the around the sex and actually transgender. I mean, when I'm male, female, transgender, that category, they are very rigid in the approach. What I have found. But yes, the name, you go in, even in Mumbai, if you ask any transgender name, he will tell the name, which is seemingly Muslim name.
Yes.
But the acceptance among the Muslims are quite bad. But what you tell that there is a slight acceptance, that is actually good to hear.
Yes.
So, did you explore any possibility? I mean, next time exploring this, because we have 2-3 minutes more. So I'm exploring that why this acceptance is more, if you have explored anything.
Yes, sir. Actually, they are saying that Muslim religion having this previous history also regarding this Mughal time and Ottoman Empire also. At that time, from the previous years, previous periods only, they are means they are familiar with this transgender people in the Muslim communities rather than in Hindu or Christian or other religions. So they can easily accept in Muslim religion than other religions. So
Okay,
this is what
I think that I mean, this is a wonderful Venkat. I mean, this will be wonderful if it comes out the research and this kind of thing, because it is on the frontier, because we do not in our Tata Institute of Social Sciences, our students keep on doing. I mean, they celebrate this kind of thing, and we have made our hostels also gender neutral. Because I mean, we do not accept any kind of differentiations, and some of the recommendations what you have done is wonderful. So I think that it needs more research and more understanding how the acceptance comes, what way they relate themselves to the minority, do the minority as a religion, and they are also thrown out at the margin. They connect together. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is something you can explore. But what I say overall, wonderful presentations, and I think that almost we are going to the time what actually was allotted to us, 2:30, 2:31 it is now. So Manali, wonderful and presentation, and we had actually Lusom, Dr. Lusom. I mean, lots of things can be done on this presentation, and then you have Venkat and Minu. So thank you very much. If you have some questions you want to discuss, I see that Professor Saidun Nisa has said that close it by 3:40. So we still have few minutes. If you have something, we can discuss. Otherwise, we can close this because other session is coming up.
Professor Subani, if you have suggestions for these people, young people, please feel free to give them.
Yeah,
it's not necessary.
I thought that you must
it will be our pleasure if you give suggestion to our young scholars. Although Lusum is working as associate professor, but other
I really was charmed by his paper. I mean, I will call you Professor Lusum now. I was thinking that initially something else, perhaps a scholar, or are we too young?
No, he's associate professor in Pondicherry University.
Pondicherry University. I think that
I am
Yeah.
still as assistant, not yet associate, madam.
Not yet. Okay, I was thinking associate.
I think that ma'am, his paper opens up lots of possibility to understand, and what I said, that shape of the states matters in the larger academic debate because they need to be taken into account. Second was that what if we have analyzed data? What purpose we have served? Only thing we have shown that number has increased or decreased. But where is the explanation that what happens after that? So what I feel that I said that I said to North Indian states, perhaps your kind of comment and a scholar's comment on the developmental issues, that why this migration happens, why the people are moving out, why the human resources are actually going, and you can further show those things, that who are these people who have moved out. If the continuous English speaking people and those who are actually have some kind of knowledge of the language, assuming that you take some kind of sample survey, if this data is not sufficient, you can take it up. Second thing, engage with the political economy of the state, because numbers will actually only matter for the showing something. But what actually will matter? Numbers are important, but what will matter? How best explanation we can offer for arresting something, or actually what are the causations which have created this kind of situation. Because as I told you, just I'm giving some insight to all of you, because all of you young scholars, some of us which we have experienced in UP. I mean, I'm very near to Ayodhya. So that place, you do not have a good hospital. If you get ill, you don't know where to go. People come to Lucknow and you have all the private scattered hospitals who charge like anything, and there is hardly any survival possibility sometimes with the kind of diseases. Otherwise, if somebody is in Mumbai, you call the people in Mumbai and get treated. So you have this kind of tendency of the state. So what I feel, engaging with the state political economy based on the data which actually you generate will be wonderful. And the same is actually of Bihar. Same will happen in Vidarbha, Usmanabad, those states. So Professor Bhagat has written a lot. And I very closely know that what actually he writes and keep reading also. So it will be wonderful if you take those where the top 25 districts, out-migration, Faizabad, Gonda, Bahraich, Sultanpur, another, engage what is happening there. And something very interesting. These districts otherwise are the hub of the religious kind of thing, where people go for darshan, and we move out from there for other kind of our filling our bellies, livelihood. So this is such a contradiction. I was telling, we migrate out of those places in order searching employment, and the rest of India goes for the some other kind of thing there. So this is a very interesting kind of thing which actually you can engage in and do something. Same actually, some of you for the northeastern states where the disease burdens and other things are there, take it up and put the good effort. And Venkat, your paper, I think that will be of lots of actually interest to the people. This keep on doing this. So I look forward in future also that all of you work it out. And so we close it. We got few minutes more and we had a discussion. Anything, Manali, you want to say?
Thank you, sir, for all the suggestions, and it will be really helpful for the research. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Lusong, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Minu, thank you. And Preeti, over to you. Preeti, over to you if you can take control.
So before closing the session, I would like to thank Professor Shaban. You have really made this discussion very useful. I am very sure all presenters have received good comments. And I also want to thank Dr. Saran for giving his time. I think he's still here, but
Yes,
he was
yes.
having some
Yeah.
connection problem. Yeah.
Okay,
So
I'm
I thank both of you and all presenters and even attendees. We still have attendees. So we are going to start another session after this. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you so
Saran.
much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.